Very good morning, students. Today we are going to learn the story Footprints Without Feet. The story is written by Herbert George Wells, popularly known as H.G. Wells. His the best interest in scientific fictions. He wrote many novels. Those are The Time Machine, The Invisible Man, and The Island of Dr. Mary. And his literary work children read with a great taste. Now we are going to study the story Footprints Without Feet. In this story, there is a scientist named Griffin. He becomes invisible. He is known as the Invisible Man. He is an intelligent scientist but lawless person. He is not a good human being. He is sociopath or psychopath. So, in this story, we are going to learn about him. See, generally in our mind, a thought comes. We must become invisible. We must become invisible. But there is a question. Can a man become invisible? This is a story of scientist who discovers how to make himself invisible. Does he use or misuse his discovery? We are going to learn. See, dear children, technology, development, advancement, science or scientific knowledge must be used for the welfare of society, human beings. We should not misuse it. Scientists must be humankind lovers. They take care of society, community, entire human race. So here the scientist Griffin, how did he misuse his intelligence? We are going to learn. Now you see here theme of the story. Theme of the story. This story is about an eccentric scientist who has made himself invisible by swallowing a rare drug. It is a story of a great scientist, an intelligent scientist who discovered a rare drug that makes himself invisible. He is an intelligent scientist. Now he is homeless wanderer. He is Griffin. He lives on rent. And now he doesn't live. He becomes a homeless wanderer. His name is Griffin. His landlord did not like him, so Griffin set his house on fire. You see, I used the word, he is a psychopath. He is a sociopath. Psychopath or sociopath, it means those people who harm society. And his eccentric behavior, his strange behavior was not liked by his owner. So Griffin, what did he do? He took a revenge. He took a revenge, and what did he do? He burnt the house of his owner. He set on fire his owner's house. Here we understand he is not a good human being. He is an absolutely sociopath. But it was a cold weather of London, so he could not live without clothes. So he slept inside a big London store for warmth. And he was a homeless wanderer. He was invisible. But in those days, it was cold wintry days. So he could not wander without clothes for a longer time. So to get warmth, what did he do? He intruded inside the London store. In the store, he enjoyed food and new clothes. The next morning, the store assistant chased him, but he took off his clothes and became invisible. Throughout the night, he enjoyed food and clothes inside the store. He was happy. But in the next morning, his presence was noticed by the assistant. Then once again he threw off his clothes and he became invisible. After this, he entered a theatrical company and dressed him up and robbed the shopkeeper. You see, the next day he ran away and he entered into the theater. He put on dress and he robbed the shopkeeper. So all actions of him are harmful to society. It shows he is not a good human being. Then, with his constant harming to society, he decided to travel to a village named Epping. He went to Epping to spend a peaceful time. He spent all money and was penniless. He stole the housekeeping money of a clergyman, Mr. and Mrs. Hall. The owner of the inn visited his room and suddenly the furniture became alive. And in Epping, he stayed in an old inn. The owner of the inn, Mr. and Mrs. Hall, they wanted to be friendly to him, but he did not let anyone to be friendly to him. And in Epping, what did he do? He spent his money lavishly and he was once again penniless. Then he stole the clergyman's money. Then when Mr. and Mrs. Halls, they visited his room in their inn, then they found the furniture was alive. The furniture was moving in the air. It threw them out of the room. Now everybody suspected Griffin. When Mrs. Halls asked him about, he grew angry and turned off his bandages. He became headless. All were frightened there. The village constable was sent for He tried to catch him, but Griffin knocked him unconsciously and became invisible again. So all actions of him, very first he set out his owner's house, then secondly he robbed the London store, third in the theatre he robbed shopkeeper, next in Epping he robbed, he stole clergyman's money. Mr. and Mrs. Halls were beaten, threw away out of the room. Then once again he became invisible, headless, bandages which were all over his, in around his neck, all were troublesome. So you understand here. Then he bet the constable Mr. Jaffer. So all activities of him were harmful to society. And once again he became invisible man. So here he is an intelligent person, but he did not use his knowledge for the well-being of society. On the contrast, he was very harmful to society. Okay, so see here, Griffin, he is an intelligent scientist but lawless person. Okay, now you see here main points of this story. I am going to tell you the main points of this story. Two boys were surprised to see a muddy footprints without feet. They chased the imprints and suddenly the footprints disappeared altogether. It is in the beginning of the story. Two boys found footprints moving ahead and ahead, on and on. And suddenly those footprints got disappeared. The footprints were of a brilliant but lawless scientist named Griffin, who had discovered a rare drug to make the body invisible. He set his landlord's house on fire and became a homeless wanderer. He slept inside a big London store for the want of warmth and food. He enjoyed a good meal, clothes, wine, etc. Next day, he could not wake up in time and the store attendants chased him, but he again became invisible by removing his clothes. After this, he entered a theatrical company where he dressed up fully and looted some money from the shopkeeper. He went to Epping village and hired a room at the inn. His money finished and this time he robbed the money from a clergyman's house. Mr. and Mrs. Hall inspected his room and found none. Suddenly the chair pushed them out of the room. The scientist was suspected of robbery when he produced some ready cash. Mrs. Hall's suspicion grew stronger. The village constable was sent for. Mrs. Hall could not wait and she started asking him questions. The scientist lost his temper and threw off the bandages and spectacles and became a headless man once again. All were frightened. The constable, Mr. Jaffas, tried to arrest him but was knocked down and became unconscious. Thus once again the scientist escaped from here. In the end, he was not found. He harmed everyone. He disturbed the society's peace, and he was an absolutely lawless person. Okay, so these were the main points of this story. Now you see some important points, important questions of this story. Griffin was a brilliant scientist, but not a good human being. Griffin was a very brilliant scientist because he invented a rare dread to make human body transparent and invisible. No doubt he was very brilliant, but not a good human being. It was really a great discovery. He could become famous and dear to all if he could use his discovery for the welfare of the society. But he did just the opposite. He did not use his rare discovery for the welfare of society. He used it to create trouble. Firstly, he set fire to his landlord's house as he did not like him and wanted to eject him. Then he slipped into a London store without permission and broke open boxes of clothes and fitted himself without caring for payment. He enjoyed coffee, meat and wine. After this, he robbed a shopkeeper in the theatrical company and stabbed him from behind. Later on, he stole the housekeeping money from the clergyman's desk. All these incidents show that Griffin was not a true scientist, neither a true scientist nor a good human being. He was a lawless person. He was an anarchist. Okay. Then you see here some value-based questions. Griffin indeed made a great discovery. Yet we do not sympathize with him. Why? You see, we acclaimed his brilliancy, but we are not sympathetic at him because his lawless demeanor, his lawless behavior. You see, even after a great discovery, Griffin could not get readers' praise and sympathy. He is not praised by reader. He is unable to catch the sympathy of readers. Undoubtedly, Griffin did an uncommon discovery. His discovery could not be ignored. But no one can sympathize with him because of his work and bad intentions. He set on fire his landlord's house only because he did not like him and wanted to eject him from his house. After this, without permission, he entered a big London store and broke open boxes there and fitted himself with warm clothes. Then he robbed and stabbed a shopkeeper in a theatrical company. After this, he committed a theft in the clergyman's house and stole his housekeeping money. At last, he left the village constable unconscious to escape from arrest. He did not perform his responsibility as a scientist and did all wrong. This is the reason that no reader could sympathize with him. You see, we come across some essays, science, advantages and disadvantages, science, boon or bane, science, a servant to human being. You see here, science can become a good servant if it is used properly. This lesson proves that science is a good servant but a bad master. You see, fire can be a good servant but a bad master. Similarly, here science too can be a good servant but can't be a good master. See, yes, it is true that science is a good servant, but only when it is used properly. It is the age of science, and we cannot live without scientific discoveries. Science has made our life very comfortable and easy. Science saves our time and power. Science has done miracles in our life. You see, so many modern gadgets make our life easier and comfortable. We contact distant people in a fraction of seconds. So, science can be a good servant, but if we don't use it properly, it can be a bad master. Can be a bad master. So, dear children, after reading out, after learning the story, we understand that science and scientists they shoulder different responsibility. Their power, strength, discovery must be used for the well-being of society. So it is the summary of this story, Footprints Without Feet, written by H.G. Wells. Okay. Now you see here, I told you greeting was a process. And yes, I believe as a science, but not responsible science. Okay. You see, the invisible man how you read it, and what to read the test. Okay. Then advantages and disadvantages of being invisible, you think over it and write it. Then you tell, are there forces around us that are invisible? For example, magnetism. Yes, magnetism is invisible. Air is an invisible, but we realize it, we experience it. Okay. Are there aspects of matter that are invisible or not visible to the naked eye? What would the world be like if you could see such forces or such aspects of matter? You see, there are many aspects of nature, those are invisible, but we know their existence, and those are very essential to us. Then what makes glass or water transparent? What is the scientific explanation for this? Do you think it would be scientifically possible for a man to become invisible or transparent? So all these questions you think over it, and such questions will be very useful to you to write very artistically, very properly in the writing section. Okay, so here we studied the story Footprints Without Feet, and it's very wonderful story, and I feel your reading the extract will lead to the read the novel The Invisible Man. And my homework to you, you all must read the story, the novel Invisible Man, and write a book review of it and send to me on my personal number which is known to you. Thank you.